Great. Well, I just wanted to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us for this New Wave India webinar as part of our UnivAssist Spring 2019 webinar series. This one is about India and will be led by Swaraj Nandan, the UnivAssist co-founder and director. So I'll just hand it over to Swaraj now.
Thanks, Kate, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is a very exciting topic, and we have a lot to share. India presents a really large opportunity when we talk about engagement and recruitment, but this opportunity is changing as India is changing. So today we are hoping that we can share some background about it, some news, some research with you. I plan to throw a lot of data at you, and at some points in time they may seem like very diverse pieces of information, but the idea is to make you aware of what's really happening, because every 6 months when I travel to India, it seems like it's already changed. There are new buildings that have cropped up, there are new businesses that have come on, people are on a different mobile device. And so we need to understand that as people who are as educators who are trying to reach into this community and tap it the right way. So let's just jump right into it. So why India? I'm going to run through the basic factors why typically everybody goes in. It's the largest democracy in the world, with a huge population, which again, the way you look at it, it can be a huge opportunity or a huge deterrent. But in this case, for us, not only is the population large, so that provides a high volume of our core audience. But the fact is, when you look at the demographic makeup, half the population is under 25 years of age. So from a youth standpoint, India is very heavy on the youth population, which is great from an education standpoint, because that is the population that is going to come into the higher education sector and then go on and become the working class population. One other benefit, a big advantage, is the English proficiency. That's one thing that we have heard time and again from universities and admissions counselors, basically saying that's the one thing that they really enjoy because of the English proficiency and the hard working ethic that I mentioned. The Indian students are able to come and get basically absorbed into the system very, very easily. They're able to adapt, and also from being effective in the classroom. Because they don't struggle with the English, they're able to cope very well and become really high-performing students very quickly. Another advantage of India is it's a very diverse community. If you actually take a train from the north to the south, get out every 2 hours from the train, you will see people who are speaking a different language, who look slightly different, who are eating a different kind of food, and are possibly even dressed differently. So that's how diverse the nation is, and I think that really is great, because when the students come here, they're already used to that diversity, so which makes them very open to change. And then of course the economy. India has been blessed with economic growth over the last few years, and the biggest advantage is that economic growth is going to continue. And so I'm going to share some data with you coming right after this. So India's GDP growth, and again, the first 3 slides I'm going to go very quickly, but this is just to give you a sense of where things are headed. So as you can see, in 2018, India has already exceeded the GDP of UK and France. As you can see, the trajectory is a very sharp trajectory, and in a few years, it's probably going to outgrow Germany. So huge economic growth under the current administration. India is going to the polls right now as we speak. So on the 23rd of May, when the results come out, we'll have to see whether the same party that's in power right now will come back. But if it does, this economic growth that we have seen in the last few years, we expect it to continue, on that fast trajectory. This is a recent report that has come from Oxford Economics, and 17 of the 20 fastest growing cities in the world will be from India. This Oxford Economics, actually, they surveyed 750 cities around the world. And out of that, when you look at the top 20, 17 of the fastest growing cities will be in India. Now, understandably, these are not the largest cities, and some of the largest cities in the world are in China. But the fastest growing are the ones that are going to be in India, and that's great, because with that growth will come a lot of affluence, which we'll get into, and that is when people will be able to afford, and they will be looking out to go to go to study abroad. And I think that's a great thing for us to keep in mind as we are looking at India. This is, again, something that I found and I thought it'd be interesting to share. So one obvious thing of, when people get more affluent is you see a direct correlation that their travel goes up. Now, they could be traveling domestically or they could be traveling internationally. And I think them traveling internationally says a lot about the kind of disposable income they have, which then shows whether they are a good target. So this is an interesting statistic that was just announced. So the World Trade Organization basically predicted that India will account for 50 million outbound tourists, outside of India, people who are heading out of India by 2020. Now, as compared to China, that's still small, but the impressive number is the way it's growing. So at the end of 2017, this number was 25 million people. So literally in the span of 3 years, that number will grow to double of it and become 50 million people. And even in terms of the spend, they are now going to spend $28 billion going abroad. And there are some other metrics that people are throwing out, because most of these people used to travel domestically within India, and now they're going internationally. So this average spend for a person will be going up 3.7 times of what it was before they were traveling internationally. So again, another sort of metric that sort of shows us how the affluence is growing within the country. People have more disposable income. And since there's a very heavy focus on education from a cultural standpoint, that same disposable income, that is funding their trips will also fund the education side. And I think as potential recruiters, that's a great thing for us to look at. Another metric about the GDP of how India is growing. So PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, just published a recent report about the world in 2050. The key summary of the report was that it showed that how the emerging markets are going to really overtake the advanced economies that we have in mind right now. So 6 of the 7 largest economies in the world will be the emerging economies as we define them right now, versus what there were. And by 2050, the India could actually overtake the US as the second one in GDP at a PPP basis. So just to show you, and this is just a part of the report, we mentioned some of the details of where we took the data from, so you could actually go there and see. But India, as you can see, is going from number 3 to number 2. There are other countries that you would want to look at. Brazil is, going up. Indonesia has gone up dramatically from 9 to 4. So those are Nigeria is going up. So those are the other countries that you could look at. But definitely India, just in terms of the scale of it, to overtake the United States expectedly by 2050s, things are going to grow at a very fast pace. One of the key things to watch out for are the income trends. And from an income trend on a per person basis, on a per capita basis, of course, United States leads from the front. So an average person will obviously make a lot more in the United States as compared to other countries around the world. But the key piece to think about is the growth at which it is happening. So today, as things stand, India, an average Indian makes only 1/9 of the income that an average American makes. But by 2050, that ratio is becoming 1/3. So incomes in India are going to go up at 3 times the growth rate in the US. And again, a lot of times when we speak with universities, international universities, one of the key initial questions that we get is affordability. Are the students in India going to be able to afford to come to my university? I have a high I-20 number, and so I think if you're discussing these things with the decision makers or with your teams, one thing to keep in mind is that income trend is dramatically growing at a dramatic pace. So if you get that question again, you can share this data internally saying, okay, what, incomes in India are growing at 3 times the pace at the way they are growing in the US. And so that is going to lead to the economic power shift. And by 2040, the emerging economies in the world could actually be double the size of the established economies, which are the US, UK, France, Germany. In fact, Europe is expected to shrink in terms of the percentage of global GDP very quickly. So coming back to India, I just wanted to focus. This is another research that we do on an annual basis where we predict, what are the top 25 countries from a recruitment standpoint that universities are going to go to. India was at number 2, no surprises there. But I want you to look at the number of days that people are planning to spend in each country. And so the number that is shown in those blue boxes, just under the name of the country, shows the average number of days that recruiters want to spend in that country. So this research was done with 70 universities. And so university recruiters are saying that they would want to spend 16 to 17 days in India when they go. Similar to China, where they want to go for 19 days. But other countries, if you really see, most other countries are either half or less than half the number of days that people want to spend in India. So we thought that from a recruitment standpoint, we wanted to share that at a broad level, India is still the number 2 target country, and people want to spend a lot of time. But we need to understand that India is changing. So a lot of time when recruiters were spending in tier 1 cities, they may have to relook at that. And I'm happy to share some additional information about that in the next few slides. So India, there's a high focus on education. We just discussed that affluence is increasing. Quality in Indian education institutions domestically continues to be an issue, and there are multiple reasons to that. The youth, the high level of youth that I shared with you, half the country is under 25 years of age, is driving a significant amount of demand, but the local institutions really can't keep up with that demand. There's limited capacity. Moreover, there's a problem with quality. There are high quality institutions, but just not many of them. And then even in the high quality institutions, some of those institutions are struggling with faculty shortage. So just given that, as the overall population gains affluence and there's a high focus on education, the parents want the best for their child. And once that starts happening, they are forced to look outside the country. And so this is what is driving a lot of Indian students to look outside for high quality education, where they would not need to think about really from either a faculty member or the quality that they would be getting. So, and a lot of countries now have started offering that. Whether it's the US, many Indians are going to Canada, Australia, countries that were not in the past very popular have started gaining steam. So, places like Germany, Singapore, because of the proximity, we are starting to hear about Indian students going to these places. And so from a US standpoint, we of course have great high quality institutions and have a lot of them. So US will continue to be one of the preferred destinations for Indian students, especially at the undergraduate level. So India, as I was mentioning, it's a very diverse country. And before we dived in, I just wanted to share that many of these pockets individually are big enough to be countries in by themselves. So 29 states, but just Uttar Pradesh alone has 200 million people, which is higher than the size of Brazil. So a lot of times we look at India as just one country, but I would want you to think of India more as a Europe, which is a conglomerate of many countries, because volume-wise, these are sizable enough to be termed as enough. These states could be a country in itself, but moreover, because the country is so diverse, the communication strategies that you would need to use may shift. So the way you would communicate with a student in East India might be very different, or should be very different than a student who you're speaking with in either West India or South India. So something to keep in mind as you head to India the next time. So from an opportunity standpoint, how is India coming up, and where are the new opportunities? So we wanted to share a report that had been published by Ernst & Young, and this was talking about the new growth, India's growth paradigm. And essentially what ENY highlighted in that is that, of course, there's significant opportunity in the metros, but there are all these emerging tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which are the new wave cities as they define, which have tremendous potential if they can be tapped into. Which are these cities? So they define them as fresh metros, which would be newer cities which are going to join the 8 traditional metros soon. Then they defined a set of 10 high potential cities, and then post that, once you have done the high potential cities, there are a set of 30 additional cities that you would want to go to. So again, for every university this is going to be different, but as you look at your India plans, which are the cities to be focused on, it would be good to sit down with this list, which I'm showing here on this current slide, and map out of where you would want to go. As you can see here, I have put some yellow boxes. Now, what are those yellow boxes? Those yellow boxes are the cities where the UnivAssist tours are going in fall. And so, like we do on our end, when we are deciding where would the tours go to be most beneficial for visiting universities, I think you should do that together also with your application data to see, which cities would you want to go to, and where are those overlaps. So as you can see, we're going to 13 cities in the fall. 7 of those are out of the 8 traditional metros. So we're not saying metros are not important. Metros are important, but once you start looking beyond metros, where should you look? And so we're going to 7 of the metros, except Ahmedabad, because Ahmedabad we already covered this spring. There are 2 fresh metros, which are Jaipur and Surat, so we are going to be going to Jaipur. In the next rung of the focus cities, which are the 10 high potential cities, we're going to 4 of them. We'll be going to Bhopal, Indore, Lucknow, and Nagpur. And as you can see, there's Vadodara there, but we also covered Vadodara in spring. And then finally, in terms of the next rung of cities, which are the 30 cities, we have also added Raipur, in terms of something for people to try this coming fall. Why should you be looking at these cities? If the metros are going well, why should you be looking at these cities? The thing is that these tier 2 and tier 3 cities are actually now growing much faster than the traditional metros. So there are faster gains in population, the faster gains in per capita income. And so these new wave cities, as the ENY report calls it, are becoming more and more attractive for you to go. I would want you to look at the right side graph that I have shown on this slide, which shows the per capita income. So as you can see, in 2010, the gray chart, the gray line that's going, so that was 203. So the gray lines are the metros and the yellow lines are the new wave cities. Today, you can see that in 2020, the yellow line will be at 217. So just a question that I want to ask the group here, if you were going to the metros to India in 2010, which was at the affluence level of 203, then you're absolutely justified in going in 2020 to these 42 new wave cities. So internally, if you're again having an internal discussion and the question comes up saying, you're going to metros, why are you saying you need to look at non-metros and tier 2 and tier 3 cities? Can people even afford coming to us? This is a chart that I would refer to and saying, the same affordability for the average person that was applicable in the metros in 2010 is now applicable in the 42 new wave cities. And mind you, the 42 new wave cities, this is the average. So if you actually look at the higher potential cities within the new wave cities, you're actually going to be even at a higher income level, so and affluence level. So something to be used as you justify your proposal to travel to India later this fall. And then again, what do we focus on? There's another chart in the ENY report that we thought we should share with you, which is the education focus. And the way ENY defines it is from an education focus. They are saying, it would be a city where a lot of the population is under 20 years of age, which would be our target market. And then in addition to that, a city where a lot of schools actually have been added recently. So that shows that not only is there's population that is the right audience for us, but the fact is there's a focus on education. So as you can see, and let me just put my cursor there. I don't know if you can see it, but we have Indore, we have Bhopal, we have Lucknow, and we have Raipur. So in terms of the cities that we were talking about, which were the non-metros, all these cities are heavy on their education focus, and that's the reason why we have chosen them. For each of the universities is going to be different, but I think a combination of these yellow cities would work well for your recruitment plans in the country. Some of the cities that we want to highlight: Bhopal, Lucknow. Bhopal, which is in Madhya Pradesh, which has 5,000 high schools. It's a top 10 high potential Indian city. There's a lot of investment coming in. And just to give you a taste, Bhopal, they have just renovated their international convention center, which means they're hosting a lot of international visitors. They just hosted the Theater Olympics, and they also hosted a 2-month Agatha Christie festival. So not only are they a top 10 potential city, but they're actively investing in having international visitors come and engage with them. Similarly, in Lucknow, they were actually identified as a smart city, and actually they topped the list from a government focus standpoint. They are also a top 10 potential city, and they're getting a lot of investment from an IT and manufacturing sector. Continuing, Nagpur and Raipur, again, where we are going. Nagpur is the #1 largest city in India, number 3 largest city in India from a population standpoint. It is proposed as one of those smart cities, and then it will be the 5th fastest growing city in the world between 2019 and 2035. So, Raipur is very similar. It's an educational hub. Many of the leading Indian educational institutions are actually located there, and there's a huge growth. So the way we have selected these cities are based on multiple metrics, but you probably will need to go back to your drawing board and similarly doing an analysis of which cities would really be right for your strategic plan. How would you want to, and we are coming to 30 minutes, I was hoping to just go for 30, so we'll just go for another 5. But so now that you know which cities are the ones to focus on, how should you tap? Because engaging with a metro city versus engaging with a tier 2, tier 3 city is actually going to be a little different. So the new wave cities are now enjoying increased connectivity. Many of the airlines are now starting new flights into these airports. They have increased access to internet and mobile services. The incoming of Geo telecom in India has literally made internet and mobile services as close to free as possible. And you know, this increased access to the internet within the smaller cities has led to really an explosion of their of information that is flowing through to them. You know, there's rapid reach of social media. So a lot in many cases, you know, if you had gone and visited these cities but were not being able to effectively follow up with them, in the future that's not going to be the case. You know, these people, these students in these cities are going to be very accessible to you. And then from a recruitment opportunity standpoint, you know, the way I would approach it would be, if you could go back and analyze your application data to determine if you have traction with any of the new wave cities. And I would analyze all those 50 cities, including the metros, to see where your applications are coming from, where your inquiries are coming from, where are your Google hits coming from. Because many of these places, you know, may not have come on your application piece, but if you're starting to get more hits, which will show increased awareness and increased interest, it may be a potential, you know, city for you to visit this fall. So post that, you know, I would say you would identify the wish list cities to visit and others to engage with remotely, because now you have, you know, increased access to internet for these people and social media. So some you would say, because you can't go to all, you would say, okay, you know, I would definitely go to these metros, I would go to these tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and then these are the other cities which I still think that I need to engage with. And there's different ways to engage. You know, I listed one more idea there. If you're planning to be in India in fall, in that late August timeframe, one great way for you, you know, to engage with them is the IC3 conference, because most of the schools will actually come to Mumbai to attend the IC3 conference. If you are a part of the UnivAssist stores, you'll automatically be at the IC3 conference. But even if you're not coming on a UnivAssist store, you can go to the IC3 conference and engage with schools from all these tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And then if you have any students from these tier 2, tier 3 cities in India on campus, I would absolutely leverage them as student ambassadors. Because as we said, the engagement with a student in tier 2, tier 3 cities is different, because they may need more help with understanding the application process, more help during the yield process. Having a student ambassador from there would really be critical for your recruitment bit. And then finally, that's what I mentioned in terms of engagement. You will have to put in a little more time, because the parents and the students may need a little more hand-holding through the application process. But again, as the metros get more saturated and you know, the students get more evolved, and many of them are sort of haggling with you for scholarships, you're not going to face the same thing in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. The tier 2, tier 3 cities, the student is probably going to be more flexible. The parents will be more flexible in sitting down with you, hearing you out, finding the fit. And if the fit is right, there's a higher chance of yield in the tier 2, tier 3 cities versus the metros. So that's what we had to share. But, you know, I just wanted to take a minute to quickly share, you know, what our opportunities are with you to travel to India with UnivAssist this fall. We have the Untouched India. We have 3 tours, the Untouched India, the Mega India, and the Metro India. 2 of them are pre-IC3 conference, which are the Untouched and Mega India. They go to Bhopal, Delhi, Lucknow, Nagpur, Raipur, Indore, Jaipur, and Kolkata. And then of course, you will attend the IC3 conference, as well as the student interaction fairs and symposiums in Mumbai. And then for people, you know, who cannot come to India, you know, that early in the cycle, there is another opportunity from 26th August to 6th of September, where you can participate on the Metro Tour, which is predominantly going to the metro cities in the south. So Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Pune, and Mumbai. And that should be a very strong tour too. So for people who are not familiar with us, you know, our tours are, you know, small sizes. And you know, typically we do not have, you know, you would typically see a max of like 15 to 18 universities on that. And then we are also, for people who cannot participate on the full tours, we have a chance where you can hop on. So you can join us in a few cities if that works with you. And the key thing that I mentioned is the IC3 is included. Regardless of the 3 tours, any of them you choose, you will have the IC3. We visit both national and international schools, and very, very experienced tour leaders who really understand the market. So there's a lot of learning that happens in the buses and the cars as you travel around the country. We have changed some things recently, which we wanted to highlight. For universities that are our partners, we have provided a new opportunity for them. There'll be a quarterly newsletter that will be issuing. So you're free to provide us things that are new at the university, and we'll send it out to 17,000 counselors and students and the students are graduating anywhere from this year to 2021. And then in terms of the formats of the school visits, we have you get a chance to introduce yourself. We used to have this as 60 seconds. We have recently reduced it to 30 seconds because we find it that we lose the students if it goes too long. And so this basically helped a university put a face to the name of the university, so that you get up on stage, you introduce yourself, you talk about the university and which programs are really popular, and you move on. And that's the kind of attention span that a new student has, that a 11th or 12th grader has. So we have found these more effective. So we're going to switch to that. And also we're going to have more mock admissions panels, because we think that many times if the students are shy, we are able to handle their questions, the general questions, all in a mock admissions panel, so that they are not coming to your tables and then asking you very basic questions. So that's what we are providing in terms of fall, and hopefully many of you will join us these fall. And at this time, I think we will open to question and answers. Kate?
Yes.
Back to you.
If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to unmute your microphone, or you can type in the chat box here as well.
And sorry if we have thrown too much data at you.
That was a lot.
But the idea was that we share all this information with you so that it can help you, because many of the universities are now having as we speak, they're having the internal discussions to plan fall activities. And we wanted you to have all this information so that you can use it appropriately in those discussions. We'll give it another 30 seconds if there are any questions.
And if anybody thinks of a question later that they wish that they had asked, you can always feel free to email us at any time.
Yeah, my email is right there on the slide. Thanks, Megan. We hope you found the presentation useful. Thanks, Armando. Hope this was helpful. Okay, so if there are no questions, we would like to give you the time back. We want to thank you for taking the time to be here. And Kate, do you want to make a quick announcement about the upcoming webinars?
Yes, we will also be holding a webinar as part of our spring webinar series on Latin America in the coming weeks, and another one on Europe as well. We did do one on Europe about a month ago, and you can actually find a recording of that on our YouTube channel in case you missed it and you want to see what you missed. And we'll also post this recording there as well. But keep an eye out for forthcoming webinar dates. And also just wanted to mention, for anybody that might be attending NAFSA, we will be there as well. We'll be at booth number 406, and we would love to see you.
Great. Well, thanks again, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you at NAFSA or at the International ACAC.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks, and have a great day.